What's up, everybody? The team is back with you for another edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Know that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith riding with my guy Drew Stevens of the Bigs. And Drew, we just finished up watching that Bulls game against the Celtics in Boston. Wow. This is the first time that I can say that this Bulls team this season outplayed one of the NBA's best team and did it on the road. So a lot of things that we're going to unpack from this Bulls win against the Boston Celtics, because you can take it from a number of different ways, right? Obviously, Josh Giddey out didn't play tonight because he's still dealing with that ankle injury that was suffered against the Toronto Raptors on Monday night. So you're thinking that, okay, man down and against a team that you need to have all hands on deck. You're wondering who's going to step up to fill those Giddey minutes. And so we'll get to those guys that were able to do that, not even just off the bench, but also with that starting group. But it was a 117-108 win for the Chicago Bulls. So not only did we see a season high in points from Zach LaVine, 36. Zach went cuckoo for everybody out there that didn't watch the game. I mean, we talked about his maturity as a scorer and his efficiency, and it was on full display tonight in Boston. But not only did Zach score a career high 36 points, season high 36 points, but also this Bulls team for the first time this season, Drew, have a 3-game winning streak. Now, it's one thing to take care of the Charlotte Hornets. It's another thing to take care of the Toronto Raptors. But it's an entirely different thing, Drew, to take care of the reigning NBA champs on their home floor and also the NBA champs with some rest and some practice time on their side.
Cam, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this victory, man. It was highly entertaining.
It sounds like you're in a glass case of emotion right now off of this Bulls win in Boston, Drew.
I don't know what to do, man. Like the Bulls fan in me was entertained by this game, obviously, in the way that they played. They didn't let Peyton Pritchard go to work in the fourth quarter like they did in the NBA Cup game last month. We saw Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic just continue to put this team on their backs. They went 18 of 28 from the field combined, scored 52 of the 117 points that the Bulls scored. And while a lot of the wins that the Bulls have gotten this season have been largely because of Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, I think the difference in this one, or one of the things that stood out to me, was the contributions they got from the role players on the team, especially the young guys. Julian Phillips played an excellent game, maybe his best of the season, probably being a prisoner of the moment there. But he didn't shoot the ball well, but he shot it with confidence. He was active defensively, a lot of deflections, a lot of timely rotations, a lot of offensive rebounds. I think he finished with a team high 3, if I'm not mistaken. Patrick Williams took a lot of threes tonight. I think he hit 4 of them, if I'm not mistaken.
I got your back on that, Drew. 4 of 9 from 3, and a couple that he made were timely in the fourth quarter with Patrick Williams. So I got your back, man. Go ahead.
I appreciate you. No, they were really, the last one he hit in particular was a timely 3. We saw Zach hit Vooch late in the game. I think they were up maybe 8, 113, 105. Called Vooch up to set a screen. Drew the defense, hit him with a little pocket pass. Vooch finished off the glass, extended the lead up to 10. So, I mean, it was just a lot of good things to take away from this game. Of course, the overwhelming theme of this season is what this team isn't or what it should or shouldn't do. But on a night like tonight, it's hard to get too upset with a victory like this, man, especially when they were so close to doing it in that NBA Cup game until that fourth quarter, things kind of got away from them.
Yeah, and you have moments throughout this game tonight where defensively the Bulls were really impressive, again, against this Boston Celtics team in TD Garden. And so you want to have people out there that might say, and they look at the stat sheet and say, okay, well, even looking at the game, right? A lot of the threes that the Boston Celtics took, they normally make those shots. So I'm not on the side of things of saying, well, Boston had great looks, they just missed. I want to give the defense more love than that because, yeah, you're going to have open shots. It's just the NBA. It's going to happen. And those shots were missed by the Celtics. But a lot of those threes that they took were contested threes. And those contested threes allowed the Bulls to be in a position where that confidence started to grow even more on the defensive end. So those are, for me, the things that stand out defensively from what this Bulls team was able to do. And if it wasn't for that last late three-pointer from Peyton Pritchard that gave the Celtics 108 points, the Bulls were right there, seconds away from holding the Celtics to a season-low point total in 105. So Peyton Pritchard had to show up and do that and take away a little bit from an angle that we could have went with tonight. But Boston was 14 of 56 from 3, 25%. And it wasn't like they had a solid shooting performance in the first half and then just didn't shoot the basketball well in the second half. That wasn't the case. The Bulls defensively were there all night. I mean, they ran the Celtics off the three-point line, to be exact, on those first half numbers from the arc for the Celtics, 6 of 24. So, again, it's one thing to say, oh, Boston just missed shots. But let's just give credit where the credit is due. And don't be a hater out there. You have to give the Bulls credit for what they were able to do tonight in Boston. And you got to respect it on both ends of the floor. And we saw this story before with this Bulls team. You talked about what happened in that NBA Cup game Friday night at the United Center. Bulls were rolling, feeling good, possibly could have had an opportunity to push themselves into the quarterfinals of the NBA Cup. 3 quarters, strong performance against the Boston Celtics, tied at 96 all. And then Peyton Pritchard happened in the fourth quarter. But that wasn't the case. And it felt like this team remembered that game, Drew. And not even in the second half, but from start to finish, they were reminded of that. I'm not sure if it was reminded of just teammates talking about that or coaching staff relaying that point to them in timeouts, at halftime, in the huddle, saying, hey, guys, we're in a similar position to what happened on November 29th. We can't allow that to happen. And they really stepped up and did some great things on both ends. And I'm going to continue to hammer that of playing a full ball game and doing it on both ends of the court, but more so offensively. You talked about Zach and his 36 points. Of course, that pass to Vooch and that pocket pass to really push the Bulls ahead even more. All 5 starters in double-figure scoring. And one of those starters and another guy off the bench, Ayo and Talen Horton-Tucker. And I'm not going to say it's a Morgan Park-Simeon connection because we know what that rivalry is, Drew. And for the Chicagoans out there, the Chicago Hoopers out there, especially if you know about the Chicago Public League and if you know about the Red South Division, it's not even the Red South anymore, but me and Drew come from a different era, man. We're still going to call it the Red South. But Simeon and Morgan Park are rivals. But you saw Talen Horton-Tucker and Ayo Dosunmu just really downhill all night, getting to the rim, showing them what Chicago basketball is about, tough, gritty, and making plays time and time again. But Ayo was a dude for sure that was just relentless. And I'm going to continue to say that he's the best finisher at the rim for the Chicago Bulls. I called him the best downhill player. I'm going to say he's the best finisher, Drew. I'm just going to throw it out there. So Ayo, 17 points, 3 of 5 from 3. Also chipped in on the glass as well. 8 rebounds for Ayo, 4 assists, and a couple steals.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I think I may just adjust that and say he's the best below rim finisher. I know we've seen him turn it over a time or two.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely would put that caveat to it. But these guys are prideful. It's funny because you talked about Talo, as we call him, Talen Horton-Tucker, and Ayo, the way that they get downhill. They do it in different ways, right? Like Ayo is just like the road runner. Beep, beep, he's just off. Mm-hmm. And conversely, you got Talo, who has a little more sizzle to his game off the bounce, much bigger, obviously. It's hard to swipe the ball from him when he's driving the way that he does, and he can finish as well. Obviously, we saw him finish a alley-oop dunk with a reverse against Toronto on Monday, but he's just such a big guy, and he is surprisingly athletic for his size and the way he's built. But those guys definitely got to the rim tonight, and we've seen this team be headstrong in the way that they want to attack the paint, and either they're going to finish or they're going to kick out. Now, I do think it's funny. I saw Ayo at one point, maybe in the first or second quarter. He attacked the rim. He had Derek White on him, but he tried to hit him with a Euro step. Derek White ended up stripping him. And they panned with Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan just looked like not the biggest fan of Euro steps, or maybe certain guys who use them. But then after that, I don't think I saw Ayo do any more Euros. It was just straight to the rim, no hesitation. I'm just going to beat you to the spot, and you're going to have to do your best to try to get a chase down block. And I think that's what Ayo is best at in a half-court setting. in transition. He's just so good at getting defenders on his hip and leave him in the dust.
Yeah, and we saw that from Kobe White as well. He had some plays where just headstrong. Even one moment where second half, I believe it was the fourth quarter, just 6 dribbles it took him to go from one end to the other. Boston didn't step up. Jaylen Brown kind of hesitated like he was going to rotate over in the open court to Kobe White, but at that point it was too late. So Kobe 6 dribbles right to the rim and finished. And so that's, for me, signs of growth, because we've talked about it with Kobe, with Ayo, Josh Giddey, even Zach as well, that too many times we've seen these guys, when they get into the paint, they're electing to look for the pass instead of looking at the rim to go score. And we get it, right? We understand what the offensive MO of this Bulls team is. It's been laid out time and time again by Billy Donovan and his coaching staff, is that they want to shoot threes. And that's just what the league is nowadays. That's the generation that we're in. It's a 2-on-1, 3-on-1 fast break, and guys are not even cutting and diving to the basket if you're on the wing, if that basketball is in the middle, Drew. Dudes are fanning out to the three-point arc for threes, and that ball is getting kicked out to them, and shots are being put up. And so we get that, but also at the same time, you cannot just neglect those open lane, those open drive opportunities where the rim is there to try and go finish. So I think that's good on the Bulls for them to exploit that for the Boston Celtics. But again, if you're doing that, it just opens up the defense, because now they're collapsing in, and now it makes those kickouts a little bit easier when you have 4, maybe 5 defenders collapsing into the paint. So it creates those open looks, which the Bulls were able to have throughout this game from 3. And Zach LaVine was definitely the recipient of those looks, but then also just creating his own shot for those threes. And of course, just making plays. I mean, that's the beauty of what Zach has been able to do, isn't really his career, but also when he's been thrust into that spotlight position, that main guy position, since he's been in Chicago, where he's been able to take tough shots, make tough shots. But this season in particular, you don't see Zach forcing things. And so we got to give him that credit. Not saying that we haven't on the By the Horns podcast, because all of our listeners and viewers know that we have. But tonight was a microcosm of what we've seen from Zach this entire season, of how he's really thinking the game offensively and putting himself in position to really take over ball games. So I'm not sure if you're a fan of 3-6 Mafia. I know I am, Drew, but I'm just going to call Zach 666. He was 666 tonight, man, with the 36 points that he had for the season high so far to this point. But it's all positive signs from this team that we were curious to see what was going to happen in this month of December. So 7 games in, you got 5 wins. You're looking at a situation where it's going to get tougher, because Boston is coming back against this Bulls team on Saturday at the United Center. So a home-and-home situation that we're going to have. And before we went on to the By the Horns podcast and recorded, and I said, well, Drew, Boston is bringing hell with them on Saturday, because they imploded. They imploded in the fourth quarter. I mean, Joe Mazzulla got attacked because of a foul that he didn't agree on. Jaylen Brown ended up getting a tech while the Bulls were shooting the technical free throw. And then at the end of the game, Joe Mazzulla had to be escorted off the court by his coaching staff and security, because he was going at one of the NBA officials, and Tony why am I blanking on Roberts, right? Tony Roberts, right?
Tony Brothers.
Tony Brothers. No disrespect, Tony Brothers, but I'm thinking of Tony Roberts, a comedian. But Tony Brothers was the guy that also gave Jason Tatum a tech as well. So you don't normally see that from a team like the Boston Celtics, but that was the frustration that the Bulls were able to put them in, where 1, they weren't able to make their shots. 2, they couldn't figure out defensively how to stop this Bulls team, a team that they felt that maybe, all right, well, this is the same team that we saw on November 29th. We know at some point they're just going to lay down and give us the game. And it was the exact opposite. The Celtics actually laid down in the final few minutes of the fourth quarter and gave the Bulls a game. So just all positive things that we saw tonight.
Yeah, man, it was just a swirl of chaos over there at the end of the game, and the Bulls took advantage. It's funny because I read an article by Matt Moore of the Action Network maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, about Boston and about the way that they play the game and how they try to lure opponents into doubling or helping a little bit too much so that they can kick out for these threes. And he kind of compared it to Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, where he's trying to lure the robbers. the sticky
yeah, exactly. The wet bandits. The Bulls is like, no, we're not gonna be Marvin Harry tonight. We're not doing it. We're not about to run up these stairs. And you throwing these buckets of paint and smacking us in the face. We're not doing that tonight.
Yeah, but no, it was really interesting to see, man, because they have so many players that can make plays off the bounce, particularly Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Kristaps can do it a little bit. You have to respect Jrue Holiday, especially when he's kind of in the low post playing that low post little man game. But the way they lure you into helping them just to set up kind of almost like a bait and switch. So it will be interesting to see when the advanced stats come out how many threes that the Bulls were able to tightly contest and how many threes the Celtics were able to get up without too much of a contest. But we'll have to wait on those stats. But, tonight the Bulls played one of their better games. Zach LaVine showed improved. Cam, this man hasn't played in almost a week. He sat out Monday because of back spasms, came back against the Celtics, who can switch onto anybody, who had one of the best defenses in the league last year, if not the best. They're not quite where they are this year, where they were last year. But, I mean, Zach LaVine is just a professional scorer, a bucket getter. And I don't know if he got wind of the report that came out that we talked about on our last episode, and he's just, hey, you know what it is over here. But he really he showed out, man. He showed out like he has been doing this entire season.
I mean, and doing it against, in my opinion, still the best team in the NBA and the Boston Celtics. And it's not just because they're the reigning NBA champions, but I mean, 1 through 5 for Boston, and also what they bring off the bench. I mean, we got to throw in that Sam Hauser didn't play for the Celtics tonight, so he was dealing with his own injury there. But still, to me, this is the best team in the NBA, especially being able to do this on their home court. And so we can't overlook that side of things in this performance for the Bulls. So, I mean, all power to them, all power to Zach LaVine. I mean, this is the dude that, again, it's like, all right, I heard all the rumors. I know what's going on. I know my name is in these trade streets, but look, all of that is not going to help any defender out here because I'm still about to torch him, and that's what he did against the Celtics, man. So when you look at it moving forward, 5 more games left for this Bulls team for the month of December before we finish out the calendar year. As we mentioned, they have the Celtics again Saturday night at the United Center. Then they run it back on Monday night at the UC against the Milwaukee Bucks. Then you have Atlanta. You're going to have Milwaukee again. And then you're going to have Charlotte to finish things off, Drew. So what's that coming off of this game? And we're not trying to be prisoners of the moment, but we're seeing a team trend a certain direction. And I know 2 of the 3 wins were against some of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference in the NBA when you think about the Charlotte Hornets and the Toronto Raptors. But still, a win is a win. But also I think it's helped catapult them into what we saw tonight, Drew. So as you see them trending towards the end of this month, man, do you think that this team could not only finish off the month above 500, but then also they're 8th in the East right now, Drew? Could we look at this Bulls team being possibly top 6 in the East when it's all said and done? I mean, they're following Atlanta, who's 14-13. The Miami Heat are 13-11. And Milwaukee is right there at 14-11. The Bulls are 13-15. So things could look differently when we say goodbye to 2024 and say hello to 2025.
So I would say it's all about their defense and the way they play, that they can get stops. But because we've seen this team let their offense dictate their defense, I think it's going to be something we see moving forward in the rest of this month that's going to determine how they finish. The flip side of that is they didn't necessarily shoot the greatest tonight from 3, but they shot well enough. Right. And I think you see that. You see Zach doing what he did, and that kind of gets them going, and it feeds into them playing better defense and running around and scrambling and making sure that they are getting out and making the right rotations and communicating more effectively out on the court. So I don't know, man. Like you said, some tall tasks coming up. We know the Bucks just won the 2nd annual NBA Cup, or what do we call it now, the Emirates Cup. Yeah. So, and they're looking like a much different team now, and they've got them twice. It's I don't know, man. I don't know this team. I don't know this team.
Yeah, I think we find out more when we get to December 30th, right? After that ball game against the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte. So I think that is a good, okay, we can really fully assess this team from what we saw in the month of December, right? Still, we still got a long NBA season to go. So it's a lot of ball games left for this team that's 13 and 15 and in the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. But it's also that dynamic, and we touched on this, and we said a little bit earlier in the podcast, and even on the last podcast, about this team and that top 10 pick. Because if they finish among some of the worst teams in the NBA, 10th worst, then they get to keep that pick. But if they don't, then that pick goes to San Antonio. But I got to give some love, and we know we always give love to our guy, Casey Johnson, who spoke to Billy Donovan before the game when it concerns the trade speculation and the top 10 protected pick that the Bulls owe the Spurs. And he asked Billy how he balances the dynamic between he and his staff's job of trying to win games, develop players with strong relationships with the front office, which must think big picture. And this is off of KC's Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. But this is the quote from Billy Donovan that he said, "The one thing I respect about the organization, and this was even in the summer for meetings and things like that, is collectively there's an expectation about the integrity of competition." Let that sink in. We have things we're trying to overcome. We've had injuries. We've had size differential. We've played 4 guards. We've had some defensive challenges, but everything has been keeping the integrity of the game. That's what it's about. Nothing has ever been said about, hey, listen, we got to keep this pick, so do this and this. I respect that as a coach. So that's from Billy Donovan in his conversation with our own Casey Johnson, Bulls insider. So you have a front office, you have a coach and staff, and also a roster of players that are going to compete. You're not going to see a situation like the Charlotte Hornets, like the Washington Wizards. And I'm not even going to say no shade to those teams, because I'm throwing all the shade to those teams. They're not competing. They're not doing that because they're trying to keep themselves in that lottery position to get one of those top 10, top 5, or maybe even the number 1 overall pick. But with this team makeup, and also who's leading this team on the sidelines, and Billy Donovan, that's not in Billy's DNA. If you know Billy from New York City, like played ball, Billy Donovan was nice when he played at Providence. And of course, when he went on in his coaching career, 2-time NCAA champion with the Florida Gators. If you remember how those teams played defensively and how hard they competed, I mean, Joakim Noah, I don't think is going to be in the NBA if he doesn't go to Florida and play for Billy Donovan. Al Horford is not in the same situation that he's in the NBA if he doesn't come from that root of Florida and playing for Billy Donovan. So they have these pieces, this DNA makeup of a team that's not going to lay down. So that's why I say it's interesting as you move it forward with this team. And when it comes to, okay, all right, knowing the speculation with Zach and trades, knowing the speculations with Big Vooch with trades, and also other guys like Ayo and Kobe White, does this team stay together and try and push it forward, Drew? And you got a slick smile on your face. And Drew's like, that's what I think Drew is torn about this win tonight for this Bulls team.
I don't know if this is the gods giving the Bulls what they lost against the Jazz earlier this season or what. He's trying to balance the scales. But look, Billy Donovan is not going to coach to lose. These players aren't going to play to lose. So depending on how this season ends, wherever it may end, we're going to be pointing at the front office, not the players, not Billy Donovan and this coaching staff, because their job is to take it game by game. The front office's job, obviously, is to zoom out and to be able to be forward thinking, which we haven't always seen this front office do, which is why there's so much angst about what's going to happen with this season and what they're going to do with the players on this team, and if they're going to attack the value that some of these players on this team have. Again, I alluded to it earlier. A lot of these wins this season have been banked on the backs of Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, 2 players who we don't believe are going to be here 4 or 5 years from now. So every win that they have, again, helped the Bulls get, you look at it from 2 different directions. It's like, what's the end game here? Obviously, we heard talk about the need for Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine to pump up their trade value, to show people, particularly Zach LaVine, that he can be healthy, that he can play a certain role on a certain style on this team. But at a certain point, that starts to hinder the value of your pick. We know that it is top 10 protected and is going to be on its way to San Antonio if they do not get any lottery luck, or if they fall, if it falls outside of that top 10. So
right.
Decisions will have to be made. We still have some time before the trade deadline. At the same token, there's enough time where if you bank enough wins, you might get too far ahead of the group that you are trying to be net with, or at least not get too far away from. So, yeah, man, no shade at all. There'll never be any shade from me thrown toward Billy Donovan or these players, man. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
But coming into the season, the front office may have a lot of questions to answer. We'll see.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man. But we got to give even more love to Billy Donovan and just the coaching job he's been able to do this season with this Wolves team and this makeup and everything that's surrounding their two stars and Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, and still getting the most out of those guys. I mean, 28 games into this season, and you're looking at career numbers from both Zach and Vooch, and the efficiency from both of those guys have been all-star level. And that's another conversation there, right? I mean, maybe we can unpack that next week if they continue on. And I'm sure this is the way that they played through these 28 games, that conversation will be there for those guys, and especially if this team continues to stack wins. So it gets you to a point where you start thinking, okay, well, what's the big picture with this Wolves team and this future? Because they're trending young. They want to move forward and really build those pieces even more with Matas Buzelis, and just how this team will look 2, 3, 4 seasons down the road. So, but for right now, hey, tonight they showed up and showed out in Boston. A very nice win for them against this Boston Celtics team that, again, I will say this, I'm not sure if Drew feels this way, but they're still the best team in the league to me. 117 to 108. The Bulls got a nice win. And before we get out of here, we got to give Billy Donovan a shout, because he's one of the finalists, first-time nominees for the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. So Billy D getting his name with a list of a number of different people. And so that will be announced on All-Star Weekend when it comes to the finalists of the class of 2025 for the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. I laid out of what he was able to do at Florida during his time as head coach, but this is basketball, everything, the entire resume as a player and as a coach on multiple levels. So salute to Billy Donovan on being a nominee, a first-time nominee as well when it comes to this. So we can see if he can pull it out and be awarded that Hall of Fame jacket that everybody loves to see guys put on. But look, that's a wrap for this By the Horns podcast. For my man Drew Stevens, I'm Cam Smith, and you know that By the Horns is sponsored and presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Chicago, massive win for the Bulls tonight. Road gets tougher because Saturday night, Boston's bringing hell with them. So we'll see if the Bulls got more heart for the fight. But we'll tap in with everybody next week. Take care.